The NFL has produced legends and unforgettable moments, but behind the highlights, some players leave a trail of chaos that even the league's biggest stars can't ignore.
NFL player sued, accused of throwing furniture from his high-rise condo balcony.
From locker room blowups in Pittsburgh to a public meltdown in Tampa Bay, Antonio Brown turned every team into a war zone.
Antonio Brown appeared virtually in a South Florida courtroom Wednesday facing an attempted murder charge.
And now, after years of silence, Tom Brady finally explains why so many NFL players can't stand Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown's story is one of brilliance and chaos, a career where extraordinary talent collided with unrelenting controversy. He arrived in the NFL quietly enough, a sixth-round pick out of Central Michigan, small in stature but lightning fast. Pittsburgh Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin noticed him in training camp back in 2010. "The pedigree stands out," Tomlin said. "They show maturity in terms of catching the football and gaining separation, but they still got miles to go." And Brown did have miles to go, but he traveled further than anyone imagined, both on and off the field. Over the next several years, he became one of the NFL's most prolific receivers, posting 6 consecutive seasons with over 100 receptions and 1,200 receiving yards. By every statistical measure, he was elite. But while his talent was undeniable, his career became defined less by numbers and more by drama. The first major fracture came in Pittsburgh, after a heroic playoff performance against the Kansas City Chiefs in January 2017, where Brown caught 6 passes for over 100 yards. Most players would celebrate quietly, not Antonio. He streamed the Steelers' locker room live on Facebook, exposing private strategy and coach Mike Tomlin's comments about their next opponent, the Patriots. The league fined him, but the damage to his reputation was permanent. Brown had made it clear that rules were optional, and attention, any attention, was always his. Over the next year, his off-field behavior escalated. In 2018, Brown faced lawsuits for allegedly throwing furniture off his South Florida apartment balcony, nearly hitting a 2-year-old child below. Weeks later, he was pulled over for driving his Porsche at over 100 miles per hour in a 45-mile-per-hour zone. And when tensions with quarterback Ben Roethlisberger boiled over during practice later that year, Brown skipped final practices, forcing the Steelers to deactivate him for Week 17. That game would mark the official end of his time in Pittsburgh, though insiders later revealed that his departure had been inevitable. By February 2019, Brown tweeted a farewell to Steelers fans, announcing that it was time to move on, and the stage was set for his next, even more chaotic chapter. So, Oakland was supposed to be a fresh start. When the Steelers traded him to the Raiders, the team received a 3rd and 5th round pick, a small price for one of the league's elite receivers. But Antonio Brown was not interested in playing by anyone else's rules. He arrived at Raiders training camp in July 2019 in true Antonio Brown fashion. But before he could even practice, frostbite from a botched cryotherapy session sidelined him. Shortly after, he left practice over a helmet dispute, refusing to wear the league-approved model. Even after petitioning the NFL and returning, he abandoned practice again when denied his preferred headgear. The tension with management intensified quickly. Brown publicly posted a screenshot of a $54,000 fine from Raiders GM Mike Mayock, captioning it, "When your own team want to hate, everyone got to pay this year." Later that day, he reportedly confronted Mayock on the practice field until teammates intervened. Attempts at reconciliation were short-lived. Brown offered an apology to teammates at a meeting, prompting John Gruden to declare that the team was ready to move on. But hours later, Brown released a YouTube video of a private phone call with Gruden, amplifying the chaos. It all came to a head just days later when the Raiders fined him $215,000 for conduct detrimental to the team, effectively voiding $30 million in guaranteed money. Brown took to Instagram, claiming, "You are gonna piss a lot of people off when you start doing what's best for you. I'm not mad at anyone. I'm just asking for the freedom to prove them all wrong." Hours later, the Raiders released him. On the other hand, Brown's next stop was New England. He signed a 1-year deal with the Patriots worth up to $15 million, but his arrival was immediately overshadowed by a civil lawsuit accusing him of assault, filed by a former personal trainer. center. Less than 2 weeks later, the Patriots released him after just 1 game, citing the ongoing allegations. Brown tweeted, "Thank you for the opportunity. The marathon continues." Furthermore, social media became Brown's weapon and stage. During his transitions between teams, he mocked Pittsburgh fans and former teammates, most notably Juju Smith-Schuster, blaming him for taking the Steelers' team MVP title. Tweets, posts, and videos magnified every misstep, making Brown the ultimate locker room nightmare. In 2020, after serving an 8-game suspension for violating the league's personal conduct policy, Brown joined the Buccaneers mid-season. Despite the drama, his performance on the field was undeniable. In 8 games, he recorded 45 catches for 483 yards and 4 touchdowns. And then came the pinnacle, Super Bowl LV. Brown scored a touchdown, helping the Buccaneers defeat the Kansas City Chiefs 31-9, securing the first Super Bowl of his career. For many, it could have been a redemption story, but for Brown, it was merely another chapter in a career defined by chaos. The following season, the drama escalated again. Brown missed time due to injury before receiving a 3-game suspension for misrepresenting his COVID-19 vaccination status. When he returned, he looked productive, but his past patterns of self-sabotage were far from over. In Week 17 of 2021, Brown abandoned the Buccaneers mid-game against the New York Jets. Stripping off his shoulder pads and flashing the peace sign, he walked off the field, leaving his team in a crucial matchup. Coach Bruce Arians confirmed after the game that Brown was no longer a Buck. By 2023, Antonio Brown's life had entered a new, darker chapter, one that made even his most outrageous NFL antics seem tame. After disappearing from the league in 2021, Brown spent nearly 6 months in Dubai, living a life that seemed untouchable, untethered from reality. But in November, the long arm of consequence caught up with him. U.S. Marshals extradited Brown to New Jersey, then transported him to Miami, where he faced shocking new charges: second-degree attempted murder, stemming from a confrontation outside an amateur boxing match in Miami's Little Haiti neighborhood. Police say Brown became involved in a fistfight after the May 16th event, a scuffle with a man named Zulkarnain Kwame Nantambu. The fight escalated, and gunfire followed. Video surfaced showing Brown on a sidewalk with a gun, allegedly firing at Nantambu, who ducked to avoid the bullets. 4 days later, Nantambu told police that Brown proceeded to shoot at him, possibly grazing his neck, putting him in fear for his life. Brown's defense was swift and resolute. His attorney insisted that Brown acted in self-defense, that he never intended to murder anyone, and that the shots were meant to protect himself and escape harm. Even the alleged victim's attorney admitted uncertainty over whether Nantambu had actually been shot, describing the wound as consistent with having been grazed by a bullet. Amid the legal chaos, Brown remained strikingly composed, appearing calm and even smiling as he left Miami's Turner Guilford Night Correctional Center. Cameras captured him, hugging his attorney and walking straight to a food truck, seemingly unbothered by the gravity of the charges looming over him. "God is great," he said, echoing the faith he has often cited in the past. For Brown, life had become a delicate balancing act. He was under house arrest, fitted with a GPS ankle monitor, yet allowed to work and provide for his family, which includes 7 children and an 8th on the way. Even as the legal proceedings unfolded, Brown remained unapologetically himself. In the aftermath of the May altercation, he posted on X, claiming he had been attacked by multiple individuals attempting to steal his jewelry, and insisted he would press charges against them. Still, all the chaos and drama Antonio lived stirred up plenty of anger, and even Tom Brady finally revealed why NFL players really hate him. The feud between Tom Brady and Antonio Brown isn't just a story of 2 NFL stars. It's a saga of talent, trust, and betrayal that spanned multiple teams, years of chaos, and a public meltdown that left fans shaking their heads. Brown, one of the NFL's most electrifying wide receivers, first crossed paths with Brady in New England. But it was in Tampa Bay that the relationship really mattered. In 2020, Brady personally pushed for Brown to join the Buccaneers. He convinced then-coach Bruce Arians to bring Brown on board, believing his skill could help the team, and clearly, he wanted Brown to succeed personally, too. At first, it worked. The pair helped Tampa Bay win Super Bowl LV. Brown put up solid numbers, and Brady publicly defended him through on-field mistakes and early social media drama. But behind the scenes, cracks were forming. In May 2021, Brady allegedly sent Brown a private text that later made headlines. TMZ published it after Brown posted it and then deleted it. The message was brutal, but honest. "You are demonstrating very poor decisions and poor communication to so many people who have gone above and beyond to help you. You are acting selfish, and unfortunately, many of those people are exhausted by the erratic and unpredictable emotional behavior." Brady didn't stop there. "When I met you, you were humble, willing to learn, and anxious to improve things in your life. In a short period of time, you have done those things and accomplished some great things, and very much on the path to success long term. Unfortunately, you have reverted very much back to a young, immature man that is selfish, self-serving, irrational, and irresponsible. I, for one, am disappointed in many behaviors over the past few months. You have seemed to have lost that humility and that APG. You have gone from hanging around good quality people that had genuine interest in seeing you succeed to seeing others whose lives are erratic and out of control and leading you down a negative path." This wasn't a random text. It came after months of Brown's erratic behavior. Brady was essentially calling him out, trying to keep him on track, but Brown reacted publicly. Posting the texts on social media made the feud viral. He framed Brady's words as condescending and petty, turning private advice into public controversy. The NFL community immediately sided with Brady. Fans, analysts, and teammates pointed out this was a quarterback trying to mentor a superstar receiver, and the player was throwing the effort back in his face. Hence, the situation escalated. 8 months after the text, he staged his most infamous meltdown yet, taking off his jersey mid-game against the Jets and walking off the field. That bizarre public act sealed his release from Tampa Bay and effectively ended his NFL career. Even before this meltdown, contract issues had added tension. Brown had held up signing a new deal with Tampa Bay despite winning the Super Bowl together. Brady was reportedly frustrated with Brown's agent, calling him out over contract negotiations. Eventually, Brown signed a one-year deal worth $3.1 million with multiple performance-based incentives. But even that didn't end the drama. He was now financially dependent on Brady's ability to get him the ball to meet those incentives. Brown's frustration over targets became public during a Week 17 game. Buccaneers coach Bruce Arians revealed Brown was upset at halftime for not getting enough passes. Reports suggested the motivation was partly financial. Brown's contract had bonuses for 50 and 70 receptions, 600 and 800 receiving yards, and 5 and 7 touchdowns. Missing those targets meant losing out on $1 million in potential bonus money. Despite all this, Brady tried to support Brown. He sent him private messages encouraging him to attend psychologist appointments and stay on track emotionally. But Brown weaponized those messages for social media drama, posting screenshots and mocking the advice, further straining the relationship. The feud deepened in the public eye when Brown criticized Brady's personal life. He repeatedly taunted him about his divorce from Gisele Bündchen, claiming Brady's friendship was conditional, based only on football. On the Full Send podcast, Brown said, "Tom Brady's my friend? Why? Because I'm a good football player. He needs me to play football." People have different meanings of what friendship is. Despite this, Brady remained professional. He refused to publicly escalate, sidestepping questions from reporters while maintaining his composure. Privately, though, he was reportedly disappointed. A source told the Daily Mail, "Tom looked after Antonio for so long and supported him through many of his ups and downs. But once Antonio started talking more about Tom and the more it got negative, Tom continued to take the high road. But it has been going downhill in the last few years or so, and there isn't a friendship anymore." Then came legal trouble. Brown was accused of attempted murder at a Florida boxing event in 2024, fleeing the country to Dubai before being extradited back to the U.S. Sources confirm that Brady will no longer offer him any support. The mentorship and friendship that once defined their relationship was officially over. Brady has repeatedly stated that he wanted the best for Brown. On Logan Paul's Impulsive podcast, he said, "I wanted the best for him. I think I saw a spark in him that, if put in the right place, could be incredible, not just for the team he was on, but for his life and what he could accomplish. I always root for the best." Yet Brown's choices consistently undermine that support. From contract disputes and public taunts to bizarre in-game behavior behavior and legal issues, Brown systematically destroyed every bridge. On the other hand, their relationship wasn't all negative. In Tampa Bay, Brady fought to get Brown onto the roster. Brown contributed 45 catches for 483 yards and 4 touchdowns in 8 games during the Super Bowl run. That success was a direct result of Brady's trust and leadership. Yet even that achievement couldn't counterbalance the personal chaos Brown brought to the locker room. In retrospect, the Brady-Brown saga is a case study in talent versus temperament. Brown had the skill to be one of the best, but his ego and willingness to burn bridges alienated teammates and coaches. Brady, on the other hand, was steady, professional, and invested in mentorship, but he couldn't control Brown's choices. Now, let's look at the NFL players who had real issues with Antonio Brown and what happened in those moments. Antonio Brown and Ben Roethlisberger spent nearly a decade together in Pittsburgh, forming one of the most productive quarterback wide receiver duos the league had seen. From 2010 to 2018, the numbers reflected how efficient they were when working together. Roethlisberger played 129 games in that stretch, completing 3,184 passes for 41,649 yards with 275 touchdowns and 129 interceptions. Brown appeared in 130 games, catching 837 passes for 11,207 yards and 74 touchdowns. Their on-field chemistry was consistent and reliable, but privately, their relationship took a different direction. People inside the building described two very different approaches to preparation. Brown treated every practice like a competition, running full speed in every drill, including with second and third string quarterbacks when Roethlisberger rested. Former long snapper Cameron Canaday recalled Brown's work habits during training camp, saying he was always one of the hardest working players on the field. He said Brown's intensity never dropped and that it created tension because Roethlisberger, as a veteran with 2 Super Bowl wins and years of injuries, took a more conservative approach to practice. Roethlisberger often limited his physical workload during the week, focusing on recovery before games, a routine he felt he had earned with experience. That contrast gradually became a point of conflict. Brown wanted more live work with his quarterback during the week, and he believed the lack of those reps affected their timing on Sundays. When the offense stalled or miscommunication occurred, Brown saw it as a reflection of the different mindsets he and Roethlisberger carried. Canaday said Brown's frustration came from expecting the same level of urgency and effort from everyone, and when that didn't happen, issues developed. The disagreement reached a tipping point after a 2018 loss to the Denver Broncos. Roethlisberger criticized Brown publicly on his weekly radio show, pointing to a route he believed Brown ran incorrectly, which led to an interception. The comment was heard throughout the locker room and did not sit well with Brown, who felt the criticism should have stayed internal. Combined with the simmering practice frustrations, it added to the tension between the two. The final break came late in the 2018 season. During a walkthrough ahead of Week 17, Brown and Roethlisberger had a heated exchange. Brown left the facility afterward and did not participate in the remaining practices that week. The team initially listed him with a knee injury, but it quickly became clear that the issue was disciplinary. Pittsburgh benched him for the season finale, and with the Steelers missing the playoffs, it became Brown's last interaction with the team. He was traded to the Raiders during the offseason. After leaving Pittsburgh, Brown openly criticized Roethlisberger. He accused him of having an owner mentality, saying Roethlisberger acted as if he could publicly call out teammates and coaches without consequences. Brown said players tolerated it because of Roethlisberger's status with the organization. The pattern of public exchanges continued into the 2019 offseason, with Brown responding to Roethlisberger's comments in interviews and telling him to stop bringing up the past. Their interactions during that period showed how far their relationship had deteriorated. Despite the fallout, Brown eventually acknowledged his own role in the situation. Over time, he expressed regret, saying he had let emotions and outside pressure influence his behavior. He posted messages praising Roethlisberger, calling him the best quarterback he had played with, and describing their connection as something he hadn't experienced again. Roethlisberger, in turn, had spoken about wishing he had managed the conflict differently. Furthermore, Ryan Clark and Antonio Brown weren't just teammates on the Pittsburgh Steelers. They were two players who started as friends, turned into rivals, and eventually became one of the most public player versus player feuds the franchise had seen in years. Clark was a respected veteran veteran and one of the loudest voices in the locker room. Brown was the hungry, explosive young receiver who showed up with talent, ambition, and a personality no one could ignore. At first, they were close. Clark even helped Brown with trainers, rehab, and personal issues when he was new to the team. But the moment Brown's role grew, their relationship cracked. The turning point came in 2012 during training camp. The same day, Brown signed a major contract extension that put him among the highest-paid players on the roster. During one-on-one drills, a defensive back slapped Brown across the helmet, an illegal move even in practice. Brown fired back the next rep, slapped the defender, got open, and caught the ball. Defensive coordinator Dick LeBeau stepped in, furious, and Brown exploded. He cursed out LeBeau, defended his reaction, and told the defense he wasn't going to let anyone disrespect him, coach or player. That's when the defense stormed in. Players from both sides jumped into the chaos, and the entire drill turned into a brawl. Troy Polamalu was involved, tempers exploded, and the practice fell apart. Ryan Clark was across the field when it started, but as soon as he heard Brown yelling about his new deal, Clark snapped. He shouted, "They shouldn't have paid him. I knew it would change him." Those words stuck with Brown for years, and he's brought them up repeatedly as proof that jealousy was behind the conflict. Once Clark retired and joined ESPN, things got worse. Clark became one of the first analysts to openly criticize Brown's behavior. The late arrivals, the attitude issues, the sideline eruptions, and eventually the chaos that marked the end of Brown's time in Pittsburgh. Clark went on First Take and other shows calling Brown's behavior unprofessional, toxic, and at one point a cancer in the locker room. Brown responded like he always does, aggressively and publicly. He fired back on X, called Clark an Uncle Tom, and accused him of using TV segments to attack him for attention. Let us know your thoughts in the comments section, and before you leave, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to NFL Rivals so you don't miss the next ones.